Welcome to Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Excel but Were Afraid to Ask. This is Lesson 5, Text and Date Functions. Here's what you'll need for this lesson. Microsoft Excel 2016 or newer, or Excel 365. This lesson's example files. Speakers or headphones. If you can't hear me, you're not learning everything I'm teaching. And ideally at least 2 monitors. Here's what we'll be covering in this video. How Excel deals with dates and times. Then we'll look at some date functions, and we'll look at some text functions. One of the most common data points you'll find in spreadsheets is dates. So we're going to take a moment to talk about how Excel handles dates. Excel stores all date-time information as serial numbers. Excel can handle dates from 1/1/1900 through 12/31/9999, or serial numbers 1 through whatever that number is. Times are stored as fractions or decimals of the day. So the whole number is midnight, 0.5 is noon, etc. Let's look at some examples. So here we have some examples of some date serial numbers. And we're just going to look at what those look like as dates and as date times. So I'm just going to reference those directly here, just so I can easily copy them over. And you can see you can just format any of these as short dates. I mentioned that Excel dates run from January 1st, 1900 through December 31st, 9999. That's why 1 is 1/1/1900. And then times are just fractions of days. And so you can see if we go in to our number formatting dialog box here, scroll down far enough, we can see the times as well. The ones that are just whole numbers, those are 12 a.m. or midnight. And then the ones that are fractions or decimals, and you can see gets pretty specific there for what time it is. So you can represent any time or date as a serial number in Excel. And you can also represent it just as the time. This doesn't change the fact that this value is April 22nd, 2020 at 3:28 p.m. and 40 seconds. It doesn't change that. It merely changes how it displays. So that's something also to be aware of when you're dealing with dates. Make sure you know whether or not you're also dealing with times at the same time. Now that we understand how dates work, it's time to look at some functions that will help us leverage dates in our data analysis. Each one of these is fairly simple on its own, but later in this lesson, we'll see how powerful these functions can be when combined with some of the things we've already learned in this course. The functions we're going to cover today are the today function, the day, month, and year functions, date, weekday, the end of month function, and the days and network days functions. First up is the today function. Now, the today function adds the current date to a cell. The syntax is equals today, parentheses. The today function doesn't accept any arguments. Now, the function is always going to display the current date. So if you just want to insert today's date and leave that as a hard-coded value, you can press Control and semicolon, and that will enter today's date. Of all the different functions that we've looked at so far in this course, the today function is by far the simplest. It has no inputs, no arguments at all. It's literally just equals today, and then open parentheses, close parentheses. And that'll show today's date in the cell. You cannot enter any arguments in there. If you put anything in there, it's going to give you an error. It won't let you enter the formula that way. You can, however, as we noted, since dates are just serial numbers, you can modify this just by doing +1, and that'll be the following day. It'll show tomorrow's date. Or you can do -1. It's yesterday's date. You can do any sort of math there that you want. We use the day, month, and year functions to return the day, month, or year of a date. The syntax is the same for all three functions. Equals day and the serial number, equals month and the serial number, or equals year and the serial number. Before we look at examples of that, let's also talk about the date function. The date function is actually the reverse of the day, month, and year functions. So the date function returns the serial number of a date when given the different parts of it. The syntax is equals date, year, month, day. So here we're going to look at the month, day, year, and date functions kind of all together. Here we have a couple of dates. That's my birth date, and that's the day that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Basically what the month, day, and year functions allow you to do is break a date down into its component parts. So, for example, equals month that's the only input. And so you can see we get the numerical representation of February there, which is 2. And it doesn't matter what date formatting is applied here, or if any date formatting is applied here. If that's just the serial number, or if it said the long date there, you'd get the same result for these formulas. And you can also run these directly off of the serial number, which I've put in this field. Doesn't matter. This and this are exactly the same as far as Excel is concerned. Now, the date function works the exact opposite. It's just the reverse. It allows you to get a date serial number based on inputting the year, day, and month. So the syntax, as I mentioned, is date, year, month, day. The weekday function returns a number between 1 and 7, identifying the day of the week, Monday through Friday. The syntax is equals weekday, date serial number. Coming back to these same examples as before, we're going to now try the weekday function. As I mentioned, the weekday function returns a number 1 through 7, representing the 7 days of the week. So Sunday is 1, and Mondays to, etc. This is just a reference over here. So we can find out, for example, what day of the week I was born on. And those represent the days of the week that each of these dates is. You can see from the long date version that matches up. Friday, Sunday, and Wednesday. The end of month function returns the serial number of the last day of a month. The syntax is equals EOMONTH, date serial number, and months. The months input is optional. It allows you to enter a number and the function will return the end of the month that many months after the date you input. So because different months have different numbers of days in them, it's not always as straightforward as you think to figure out what the last day of a month is without some very complicated formula or lookup table or something. And that's why Excel gives us the end of month function, because that enables us to know what the last day of a month is. So the end of month function is EOMONTH, and it takes two arguments: the start date, so that's in this case going to be our dates in this column, and the number of months after that you want to return the end of. So we're going to start with just 0 and look at the end of each of these months. Let's format those as dates so we can see them. And you can see, because 1984 is a leap year, the last day of the month was 2/29 rather than 2/28 in the previous year, in the following year. So, so that's the end of month function. And you also have the ability to offset it by a number of months, whatever number of months you want. So in this case, we're going to do, once again, our start date. And then I want to know how many days are in the following month, or when is the end of the following month. And you can see here we go from 2/10/1984 to the end of the following month, 3/31. Now that we understand that dates are treated as serial numbers in Excel, one of the things we might want to do is count the number of days between two dates. So there's a few different ways to do this. To count the number of whole days between two dates, we can just subtract the start date from the end date. Now, this is going to include the start date and exclude the end date. If you want to include both the start and end dates in your calculation, just add 1. Or we can use the days function. The syntax is equals days end date start date. This has the exact same functionality as just subtracting the dates. There's no advantage to using one version over another. Again, the days function will include the start date but exclude the end date. To include the end date, just add 1. So here we have a couple of date ranges, and we're just going to look at the different methods that we just talked about for calculating the difference between two dates. So again, the easiest way of finding the number of days in a range is to just subtract the end date minus the start date. Now, an important thing to note, as I said, is that this includes all of the start date and none of the end date. And the reason for that is simple. when we think of dates in Excel, we should think of them as that day on at midnight. And because it's that day at midnight, basically, 3/1, all of that day is included when we subtract. But 3/10, none of that day is included. Midnight is the very beginning of that day. And so that's the reason that the math works out this way. If we wanted to include the end date in full, we just add 1. And then the days function does exactly the same thing as just subtracting. So this is, again, just days, the end date, the start date, and you should get the same answer. We added 1, so you won't get the same answer now, but there you go. You might need a little more functionality than just subtracting the dates or using the days function. One of the things that you might want to do is calculate the number of work days between 2 dates. The NETWORKDAYS function returns the net number of work days between 2 dates, and it excludes weekends, and it can exclude any specified holidays. The syntax is equals NETWORKDAYS, the start date, the end date, and an optional list of holidays. Now, this function does assume that a weekend is Saturday and Sunday, so those are the dates that it's going to automatically subtract. For non-standard weekends, you can use the NETWORKDAYS international function instead. And I'll show you how to use both. So sometimes we need to know the number of work days between 2 dates, not just the whole number of days. And for that, we have the NETWORKDAYS functions. So in this case, if you look at these 2 dates, we know that there's nine days there. And in the middle of that is a weekend. Because of that, when we do NETWORKDAYS, start date, end date, we get 7. And you can see in all of these cases, the numbers are a bit lower. It's subtracting Saturday and Sunday from the dates that it's counting. NETWORKDAYS also has the option to include holidays. So I've gone ahead and taken the list of paid holidays that I get from the last few years and included it here. And I can add that as an argument as well into the function. Now, in this case, there aren't any holidays between March 1st and March 10th. But if you look at this bottom example here, it'll go from 67 to 64 because of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. As I mentioned, NETWORKDAYS only, it assumes that you're using a Saturday, Sunday weekend. But there is an option to use a non-standard weekend. That is in the NETWORKDAYS international function, which is networkdays.intl. And again, the syntax is similar. You enter the start date and the end date, and then you select a weekend model. So my fiance actually has Fridays and Saturdays off. That's her weekend. So I would put 7 here for her. She gets the same holidays as everyone else. And there you go. As a result, her, she actually has one more work day in this period than the previous version of the function showed. The other type of function we're going to cover today are text functions. Text functions allow us to slice and dice, manipulate, and analyze text in our spreadsheets. The functions we're going to look at today are the text function, substitute function, the substring functions right, left, and mid, the text format functions proper, upper, and lower, and the search and find functions. First up is the text function. Now, we've talked a little bit over the past couple of lessons about number formatting. Up until now, we've only looked at formatting numbers in place, but sometimes that isn't an option. Sometimes we need to convert a number to a formatted text string, and that's where the text function comes in. The text function converts a value or number to text in a specific format. The syntax is equals text, value, format text. Format text is a text string that describes the number format you want to use. Let's look at some examples. In previous lessons, we've dealt with some number formatting, but we've always done it right in the cell. So you can see this is a formatted number that's formatted as a zip code and a phone number and a percentage and so on. But sometimes we don't have the ability to format things directly in the cell. We have to format them inline in a function or in another cell. You'll see some more examples of why a little bit later in this lesson, and in a future lesson when we talk about data merge, you'll see even more examples of that. So for this, we use the text function. Now, the text function allows you to take a number and then specify how we want to format it. Now, the way this argument works, the format text argument, it's a string describing the format. So in this case, you may remember from a past lesson that I mentioned, one of the big headaches of living in New England is that our zip codes start with zeros, and Excel likes to drop those zeros. So we have to force it to use, in this case, a 5-digit number to represent what is a 4-digit value by doing this. And that'll format it as text in the correct format. In general, things that are like this, where you just need leading zeros, or like this, where you're just trying to add some symbols, you can just do double quotes around a bunch of zeros with the correct formatting. So this is another example, exactly the same as that. Space. And that'll format it as a phone number. Sometimes it's not so obvious, or sometimes you just don't remember or don't know exactly how to create that format string. That's okay. You can actually get those format strings directly from the format cells info. Basically just pick the formatting that you want to apply. So in this case, it's percentage. And let's say I want it with 2 decimal places, even though my example doesn't show it that way. You just do that. And once you've selected it in one of these categories, then click Custom and copy and paste what's in here into your text function. So again, your format string always needs to be in double quotes. Now, you'll know you're doing this right because by default, Excel puts all numeric values, it right justifies them. It puts them on the right side of the cell. And it puts all text values left justified on the left side of the cell. So you can see that those are formatted as text now, but I'm going to go ahead and just right align them because it's freaking me out a little bit. Again, this is a date serial number. If you want to just pick a date format from the number formatting menu and copy and paste the format text, go for it, or write your own. We have month, day, the 2-digit year maybe, or the full name of the month. Shouldn't be a comma there. Or just the full name of the day. Whatever formatting you like. You can do it right there in the cell. And again, you don't have to memorize all of these different options. They're all, you can just choose one from here. I like this one because it's got the most stuff. And then just copy and paste it. And the same here. Oops. Next up, we have the substitute function. We use the substitute function to replace existing text with new text. The syntax is equals, substitute, text, old text, new text, instance number. The substitute function allows you to replace text with different text within a larger string. So I've taken a list of some baseball trades that happened since the end of last season. And this is going to give me an example, a good way to show this off. So the substitute function, the first input is text. That's your original text, your full text string. So that's our statement here. And then your old text, that's what am I replacing? What am I trying to find in here? And our new text, so that's what am I replacing it with when I find it? And then an optional instance number. So if this string said Chicago Cubs multiple times, if I leave this blank, it would replace all of them. And if I don't leave it blank, if I specify, it'll replace the one that I specify. I'll show you that in a minute. So you can see we went from Mookie Betts is a right fielder for the Boston Red Sox to Mookie Betts is a right fielder for the Los Angeles Dodgers. A sentence that makes many Red Sox fans very, very sad. But to just to show off really quickly the instance number example I mentioned, So if I've got the same string multiple times within my original text, and I don't specify an instance number, then it's going to replace every single one of them, right? You can see it replaces every instance of Chicago Cubs with Boston Red Sox. But if I specify an instance number, then it's only going to find that instance. So I only want to replace the second instance of Chicago Cubs. And you'll see it skips over all the others and just replaces that one. This next group of functions I group together as capitalization functions. There are three of them, the upper, lower, and proper functions. And we use these to set the capitalization of a text string. We use equals upper and the string to make a string all uppercase. We use equals lower and the string to make a string all lowercase. And we use equals proper and the string to capitalize the first letter of each word in a string. A lot of times your spreadsheets will be made up of data that were provided by customers or website users or some sort of uncurated data. And in that case, when you have text data, it may not always be in the proper format that you want it to be in. So for this can be useful. We have our capitalization functions, and those allow us to, again, modify the appearance of the text without modifying it in place. So those are upper, which makes everything uppercase, lower, which makes everything lowercase, and proper, which makes each individual word uppercase. Now we're going to talk about substring functions. A substring is any piece of text that is a part of a longer piece of text. Excel has three functions for getting substrings. The left, mid, and right functions return a specified substring from a text string. The syntax for these functions is equals left text number of characters to return the given number of characters from the front or left of the string. Equals right text number of characters to return the given number of characters from the end of a string. And finally, equals mid text start and number of characters to return the given number of characters from the middle of a text string. So the left, right, and mid functions, the substring functions, on their own are just building blocks. They don't really offer you much as standalones. But we'll see in a little while what some of the possibilities of those are. But the way they work is they return the specified number of characters from a given part of a text string. So in this case, we have the left function, and then our text string here. And we're just going to take the first character. You can see that'll return an A. And then if we take the same thing, just the rightmost character from this text, we get the C. And using the mid function has a little bit more, has an additional argument to it. So with the mid function, we enter this, our text, And then we have to tell it where to start. So that's the number of the character we want to start with. In this case, that's going to be 2. We want to start with the second character, and the number of characters, we want to only return 1 character. So if we wanted to try to get this longer string into separate pieces, we might do the left 3 here and the right 3 here. And to get the middle 3, we would want to start with character 4, because we've got characters 1, 2, and 3 here. So we want to start with character 4 and show the next 3. And you can see how this would be pretty difficult to utilize if I had to hard code numbers in there. But we'll see a little bit later, we're going to go over some examples that would allow us to utilize this a little more effectively. The last functions we'll cover in this lesson are the search and find functions. The search and find functions return the position of a substring within a string. They have the same syntax: equals, search, find text, within text, and instance number, or find text, within text, instance number. The only difference between the two functions is that the find function is case sensitive, and the search function is not case sensitive. Let's take a look. The search and find functions use the same syntax, but they have a slightly different functionality. So starting with the search function, we want to find this substring within this larger text string. And you can see that returns 1, because ABC, that's the beginning of that text string. The find function, again, we're looking for this text string within this larger string. That's going to return an error. And the reason is because the search function is not case sensitive, but the find function is case sensitive. And so as we drag these down, you'll see when the case of the substring matches, these have identical output. When it doesn't, in all of these cases, you're going to get you'll get errors when the case isn't found. So here's an example of, for some reason, I've given myself a nickname I do not like. But here's an example of where you might get a different output between these same between these two functions. Search is going to give you the first instance that it finds of the string, regardless of the capitalization of it. So it's finding this right here. Whereas this doesn't find this because the case doesn't match. So it's only finding this one. Both of these functions allow you to tell it where to start looking. So for example, if you wanted to get these to match, you might tell the search function to start at character 4, because the D in Drew is character 3 there. So if it starts at character 4, then it won't find anything until it gets to character 9, just like the find function. Let's review what we've learned. We learned how Excel deals with dates and times. We learned some new date functions, including the day, month, and year functions, the end of month function, as well as days and network days. We also learned some text functions, including the substring functions left, mid, and right, and the capitalization functions upper, lower, and proper, as well as the search and find functions. Thanks for watching, and join us again for the next lesson.